Hey, what's going on, you guys? Keith Carnes here, and welcome to another episode of Unexplained Disappearances. And this time we're looking at Benjamin Bathurst, a man that disappeared in 1809 and is obviously dead by now, but he's a guy that they believe was murdered, and his disappearance is extremely interesting for the simple fact of the matter that he seems to have disappeared pretty much into thin air. Now, a lot of people here on YouTube have covered this story before, and none of them have been able to obviously figure it out. Everybody's confused about this, so I decided why not go ahead and put it on my channel as well. So this is one of the most interesting cases that I'm probably ever going to really cover in this series. I mean, that's debatable, but it's just interesting because of how he disappeared and how nobody seems to have seen or heard anything, and how it's even possible that Benjamin even disappeared at all without, you know, somebody noticing. It's just bizarre, all in itself, let alone him disappearing and probably never being found. So it says here, Benjamin Bathurst was a British diplomatic envoy who disappeared in Germany during the Napoleonic Wars. He was the third son of Henry Bathurst, Bishop of Norwich. Just a little bit about him. Bathurst disappeared on or about November 25th, 1809, sparking much debate and speculation about his ultimate fate, especially in science fiction stories based on perception that his disappearance was a case of particularly sudden, perhaps supernatural, vanishing. Recent research suggests the circumstances of Bathurst's disappearance were widely exaggerated, and that he was most certainly murdered. So here, you know, this is a case that took place a very, very, very long time ago. I mean, 1809, do the math and you'll be like, wow. Wow, excuse me. That was a really long time ago. So, wow. Sorry, something just like flew to the back of my fucking throat. Anyway, that's what she said. Anyway, so, you know, this is a case that took place a long time ago, and, you know, back then they believed in a lot more stuff than they believe in now, and the supernatural was a big thing back in the 1800s. People believed, you know, they believed in witches and all that kind of shit. So it's not really surprising that this was a case that was kind of, you know, considered supernatural to the people of that time. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of details regarding the disappearance of Benjamin, and then I'm going to give you my opinion on it to end the video. On or about November 25th, 1809, Bathurst and his German courier, Herr Kraus, were traveling by chase under the aliases of Baron de Koch and Fischer, respectively, and stopped at the town of Perleberg, west of Berlin, Germany. After ordering fresh horses and at the post house, Bathurst and his companion walked to a nearby inn, the White Swan. After ordering an early dinner, Bathurst is said to have spent several hours riding in a small room set aside for him at the inn. The travelers' departure was delayed, and it was not until 9 p.m. that they were told that the horses were about to be harnessed to their carriage. Bathurst immediately left his room, followed shortly afterwards by Cruz, who was surprised to find Bathurst was not in the chase when he reached it, and indeed was nowhere to be found. So that's pretty much the gist of his disappearance. They're leaving. The one guy's following him. It's not like, you know, Bathurst was behind him where he could have been like grabbed and quieted and drug away somewhere, because that's pretty much what I would assume. He was in front of him, and then before he just gets to the carriage thinking, yeah, he's right in front of me. He's nowhere to be found, and was never seen again. So this is definitely a very interesting case, the fact that he literally vanished right in front of somebody. And then it says here, on April 15th, 1852, so quite a while after his disappearance, during the demolition of a house on the Hamburg Road in Perleberg, 300 paces from the White Swan, a skeleton was discovered near the threshold of the stable rather. The back of the skull showed a fracture as though from a blow from a heavy instrument. All of the upper teeth were perfect, but one of the lower molars showed signs of having been removed by a dentist. The owner of the house, a mason named Kaiswetter, had purchased the house in 1834 from Christian Mertens, who had been serving a man at the White Swan during the period when Bathurst disappeared. Bathurst's sister, Mrs. Thistle Waite, they have interesting names, traveled to Perleberg but could not conclusively say whether or not the skull was that of her brothers, which obviously she's not an expert. So I don't know what they ever did with the remains. I didn't read anywhere on here what it said they did with his remains, but obviously with today's technology, we could probably identify whether or not those remains were of that of Benjamin, but the odds are they probably were, because it's where did it say? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. 300 paces from the White Swan. I mean, it was only 300 paces from the White Swan, so the odds of it not being him are probably more unlikely than it actually being him, which is more likely. Now it says a recent investigation, a detailed investigation conducted by writer Mike Dash, first published in 14 Times, concluded that the allegedly mysterious details of the Bathurst disappearance had been greatly exaggerated over the years, and that Bathurst was almost certainly murdered. Well, obviously, the guy was never found. That goes kind of without saying that he was probably killed, because where else would he be? He's not going to hide himself, and I really doubt that Benjamin Bathurst would refuse to get back in contact with his family. Now, what I think happened is, I do think that those remains were more than likely Bathurst, but even if they weren't, I'm very comfortable in saying that he was obviously abducted by some very, very sneaky and very, very professional people, and they probably had their reasons for killing him, and I'm sure that he probably didn't live much longer after they had already secured him at probably that house just 300 paces away from the White Swan where he was staying. So it's just one of those where it seems like something supernatural is there, but you know, there are some things in the there are some points in the story that really point to it just being a very, very clever and very, very sneaky abduction that I think just puzzled them because they weren't expecting it. And it was at night, so that works too. It was 9 o'clock at night, so it was dark out, so they probably couldn't really see either. And you know, it's not like today's world where you have light on every corner. Back then there was a lot of very pitch black areas, and maybe they were in one of those perfect areas to be captured. Anyway, that's my opinion on this story, case, whatever you want to call it. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you for viewing, and I will see you guys in a future episode of this awesome series. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my subs, and you guys take it easy.